and welcome to Lunchtime Topics. We're glad to have you listening live or catching us on the recording. I am Kate Lance with the Creative Coast. If you don't know, the Creative Coast is a 501c3 nonprofit here in Savannah, Georgia, and we exist to catalyze the innovation economy. So what does that mean? We achieve this through our social and educational programs. Basically, our social programming connects the entrepreneurial community in Savannah, connects startup founders, connects their teams so that they can innovate together, meet, connect, network. Our educational programming, like Lunchtime Topics, which you're listening to now, helps inspire and educate the local entrepreneurial community, aspiring entrepreneurs. And, it can be in ways of marketing. It can be in ways of how to scale your business. It can be how to grow your team, how to hire the right people, how to, of course, launch your business. We do a lot of those. And if you want to learn more about all of our programming, you can go to our website, www.thecreativecoast.org, to learn about those programs. And we're actually going to talk about one of our other programs today. So you can learn about a little bit more about that today as well. And we'll get into that in a second. So for our Lunchtime Topics, we always bring on a guest for a Q&A style interview on their area of expertise to share their wisdom with Savannah's startup and innovative community. And today we have our very own Dwayne Stevens as the featured guest of Lunchtime Topics. And we're going to be discussing the reality of entrepreneurship. And so a little bit about Dwayne. He is the program director of our Make Startups program, where he connects entrepreneurs to the Creative Coast educational programming, like the Idea Accelerator Bootcamp, which we'll talk about today, and provides mentorship to Savannah area entrepreneurs through that programming. And about his entrepreneurial background, he is an entrepreneur himself, of course. He's a budding serial entrepreneur. At the age of 28, he started his entrepreneurial journey as the owner and operator of a retail business in Savannah's historic district. And he has since launched another venture as a built environment consultant, where he advises companies and everyday people alike on how to navigate building projects. Additionally, he is part owner of a small tech venture. And to date, Dwayne has amassed 10 years of entrepreneurial experience and doesn't plan to stop his entrepreneurial journey anytime soon. So Dwayne, thanks for coming on today to chat with me. We're excited to have you, and welcome everybody who's listening live.
Thank you for having me, Kate. First, let me thank you for having me. Number one, thank the Creative Coast for having Lunchtime Topics for the community to be able to look in and hear some stories of entrepreneurs, tech business owners, and all of that good stuff. I appreciate you all allowing me to jump on this platform.
Yeah, well, we're glad to hear about what you have to share today and upcoming stuff that's happening in the Creative Coast community. So that's exciting. But before we do that, I always ask guests, can you tell us a little bit more about your background? Obviously, we had your bio here that I read, but I want to do a little bit more about how you started in entrepreneurship.
All right, so it's going to be some of that's going to be repeated, but here we go. Well, first, I'm from Savannah, born and raised in Savannah, west side of Savannah, Cloverdale, to be exact. I've always had a knack for, or a passion for, problem solving, and I'm a creative by nature, so I like to merge the two of some creative problem solving. So I was always trying to tinkering around the house and doing things for my parents, and they always encouraged me to keep diving into those spaces, which eventually turned me into wanting to go down the path of finding out more about how do I solve problems, how do I create things that can solve these problems. And I started looking around, and at 19, I got a job as a draftsman. I went to Jenkins High School, went to SCAD, and I went to school for architecture. So I went to Jenkins High School as part of the engineering and robotics magnet program, and I learned how to do drafting there. So when I learned how to do drafting, I went through this program at the summer work program as I was going into college at Georgia Pacific. And I did drafting there, and I met an entrepreneur who is now my mentor, and as even now my business partner on the small tech business. And he really encouraged me to keep going down the business path. And from being introduced to him, I started getting connected with a whole lot of other business people. And I was like, wait a minute. I think this is the thing for me. I think I can start using my creativity and my desire to solve problems and start something that might actually have some type of impact and give me a lifestyle that I really want to enjoy, because these guys look like things are good. So in that, I continue to just keep exploring, developing different ideas, running it by him. He probably was absolutely sick of hearing all of the ideas that I came to him with, but he never turned me away. He kept encouraging me to keep going, and kept pushing me back, do more research, figure this out, think about this. I was like, all right, cool. So eventually, I just constantly started thinking of business ideas. And I was sitting down one day at school and at a class in SCAD, and excuse me, I noticed in the cooler months, there were a lot of students wearing flip-flops. I was like, what is this? I don't know why I was looking at people's feet. I should have been paying attention, but I was looking at people's feet. But I noticed they were wearing flip-flops, and something about it just kind of stuck out to me. And I said, I wonder if this is such a big market, how we can work this thing out. And then I learned about another venture. A guy was telling me about this guy in Atlanta named, they called him the Sock Man. He sold socks, and that's all he sold. He sold socks out of the back of a truck. Got extremely popular. So eventually I thought, let me put this together. So if I sell flip-flops, there'll be a season where I won't have a real market to really keep selling, because it's going to get cool at some point. So if I implement this idea of the socks, people always need socks. Let me put that in there. All right. So I married that together. And here comes my first business, guys. It was flops and socks. I threw it out to a friend of mine, just in casual conversation. She thought it was a cool idea, left it at that. Then sitting down and talking with one of my really good childhood friends, we were talking about building generational wealth and legacy and recurring, residual income. And he was like, you know what? I think that's a good idea. So we jumped into that, and we started doing some of the legwork with some of the things that I learned from my mentor about how to start business, and watching the entrepreneurs and business people around me. And then from there, it was like, why not? Like, we're young, we have nothing else to do. If we lose our money now, if we just absolutely fall flat on our faces, if we bounce back in 10 years, we're still young, under 40. So let's try it. And that's essentially how I got into entrepreneurship. Once I did that, I ran that business for just a little under 5 years, and I closed it for personal reasons. There were a lot of things going on. And along that path, I learned a lot. So when I opened that business, it was for fun, but still trying to figure out how to create that residual income, and just build this machine or this platform to legacy build. And once I closed it, I took all of the information that I gained, all of the knowledge that I gained in the process, and really started saying, okay, what is this business? Like, what is it really doing? Because it taught me a lot. And the business eventually ended up even telling me what it was and what it wanted to be. So I put a lid on that and said, okay, I don't want to tuck it under the bed or anything. I do want to eventually touch it again. But in the process, I was out in the building industry. Again, my background is in architecture. And just to pay bills and things of that nature, I started working in the building industry. And along that path, I started seeing that I would get phone calls from peers, and people would pass my number out, like, hey, here's a guy who knows a lot about architecture. Here's a guy who knows a lot about building. So I was like, wait a minute, I might have an opportunity to make some money here. And I absolutely love the building industry. So let's see what this is. So eventually I started working different projects, got exposed to various things, various, like the construction side, the historic preservation side, and again, the design side. And that's like, why not? People are calling me. I'm spending an exorbitant amount of time explaining things to people. Let me see if people are actually willing to pay for my information. And that's how I landed in the space of, a built environment consultant. From the tech side of things, my mentor, he called me one day, and he had this really cool idea of developing an app. I can't really say too much about it right now, but it's kind of like a guide yourself, explore your city, and get information on your own type app. So he called me, he said, hey, I got a good idea. And I know we've been always wanting to work with each other on a business, because I've got the opportunity to watch you grow as a business person all the way from where you didn't even know what it looked like to own a business. And he's grown to really respect the knowledge that I've acquired over the years. And it's super humbling, and it's a super exciting experience to have your mentor now asking you questions and asking you for feedback as to what you think. So that's how I ended up in the tech business. And right now we're still in the startup phase, and we're doing some ideation. And again, we'll touch a couple of points further down the road where there's some customer discovery and all of that stuff going on. But I'm excited to see how that business develops. Outside of that, it sounds like I've been doing a lot, and I have. I'm still doing a lot, and that's not foreign for any entrepreneur. I'm also pretty active in the community. I sit on a few different boards. I sit for the Historic District Board of Review. I am on the board of directors for Habitat for Humanity for the Coastal Empire. And I also am a member of the MPC committee, which is the Metropolitan Planning Commission. So that is not foreign to entrepreneurs. They fill up a lot of time slots. And I think for me, it was a good tool for me to help me with my time management, because if I had to block out time for certain activities, I had no choice but to do the things. So I'm doing the things, filling up my schedule.
Yeah, well, so given your background, you obviously know a lot about entrepreneurship, the ups and downs, and that's why you're here today. But I always ask, another question I always ask is, why are you passionate about this topic and the reality of entrepreneurship?
So cool story, little short story, and it'll lead directly into why I'm passionate about it. So in eighth grade, going into high school, my aunt, I was spending some time with my aunt, and she said, hey, I want you to help me out with summer school. She was a math teacher and actually ended up being my math teacher at one point. She had some students for summer school. She was teaching summer school, and she had this one young man in particular. He was struggling trying to get from sixth grade to seventh grade. And she was like, he's your project. Okay, I was like, no problem. She gave him to me. I sat down with him, coached him. And we got to the end of summer school. He had to take his test to determine whether or not he was going to be able to go through to the seventh grade. And I wished him luck, went about my way. My aunt called me shortly after summer school wrapped and called me, and she said, hey, he actually was promoted. She said, his grandmother called me, and she would like to meet you for helping him be able to go from sixth to seventh grade. I got there, and this lady gave me the biggest hug, and she would not let me go. And she was crying, and I was like, oh my God, what is this? And that triggered something in me. That is one of the passions that I have for entrepreneurship, and that is being able to do something that I'm well skilled at to have an impact for some people, and just the community around me, individuals that just have a passion for certain things. Additionally, again, go back to the beginning, I am a creative and a problem solving junkie. Like if I see something, I'm always going to try to figure out, well, how can we do something to make that better? What's a way that we can do that somebody may not be doing already. So it gave an opportunity for me to scratch that itch of, okay, solve problems and be creative. So I'm really just having fun. Like I'm having a blast doing this stuff all the time because it's just stuff that I love. But beyond that, scratching that itch, having an impact, I wanted to be able to get to a place of creating a comfortable lifestyle for myself and my family, and be able to pass that along. So those are really the things that drive me, and that's at the core of why I'm an entrepreneur, and why when entrepreneurship gets crazy and hectic, that I keep going.
Awesome. So I gotta ask this question because it does allow you to have a little bit of freedom with your time, sort of. It sounds like you're busy, or at least to be in control a little bit more when you're in your own business, sort of.
Right, right.
That's kind of what we're going to talk about today, the reality of entrepreneurship. And so you and I have talked about this before, but my next question is, when you're looking from the outside in, it does look kind of rosy and cheery. Sometimes some people market entrepreneurship as being like, you'll get on Instagram and you'll see those guys and they're like walking on the beach or they're in front of these nice cars and you're like, do you want this too? Like I get those a lot. Like there's a guy walking on the beach. You want more time? Let me tell you how you can automate your business. It often looks so easy. And so I wanted to ask you, what are some of the common misconceptions that in this mentorship that you've been doing and this work you've been doing through our Make Startups program and just before that, common misconceptions you are seeing among entrepreneurs who are just starting out or they're aspiring, they haven't even started yet?
You really hit the nail on the head, honestly. Like a lot of people think it's extremely easy. A lot of people think it's immediate freedom with your time, all of that good stuff. That's not it. It is not that in the least bit. It takes a while to get to that place. At least if you're building a sustainable business, if it's something that you want to hold on to for a while and really enjoy the fruits of that labor, it is not easy in the least bit, but it's fun and it's worth it. I'm happy that you brought up the Instagram thing because I'm on Instagram, haven't been on Instagram extremely long. If anybody, I know there's some people that know me and follow me on Instagram, they'll tell you that I'm not really on Instagram, but I scroll Instagram because all I have is a profile picture, no other content. But you get all of these little snapshots of people's lives in this entrepreneurial world. And here is how you can make some money. Like it drives me crazy because people have to realize these are the highlight reels. Like nobody's showing you when they're not sleeping. Nobody's showing you when their bank account is almost overdrawn because they had to do some cash infusion to their business. Nobody's showing you any of that. Nobody shows you what that process looks like to actually get to. I'm on the beach, I got my drink in my hand, my shades on, and I have a Rolls Royce sitting in the driveway. Like, nah, that is the biggest misconception. And I think a lot of people don't realize sometimes the individuals that are doing that and are showing you these lifestyles, yes, they have become very successful entrepreneurs, but it wasn't overnight. It looks like it's immediate and it's not. Like we have this microwave society and it's just nuts because the idea that anybody could really believe that you can build a multi-million-dollar business overnight, it goes from misconception to absolute delusion. Another thing, this is a big pet peeve of mine, Kate, and somebody on here, I hope I don't step on anybody's toes, but if I do, please take it as love. A lot of people will start a business and then once they start a business, get working at it and immediately try to start being a business consultant to their peers. That's dangerous. That's very dangerous because you've run a business for a year, 2 years, not saying that you haven't learned anything. You can absolutely tell people the experiences that you've had, but people are turning in saying, okay, now I'm going to charge you for the information that I know. And to me, I look at it like this. Imagine this. If you threw some meat on the grill and it is brown on the outside and you started serving it, but the inside is not done, I liken that idea of going ahead and jumping into business for a brief moment, run it for a couple of years, and now you want to charge people for your business information. I liken it to that. Let it cook a little bit. Let that seasoning sink into your business. Let that seasoning sink into your knowledge. Let that allow for opportunity for your information to be vetted and tested and tried. Because that's when you know it's good, and that's when you know you'll have recurring customers from the entrepreneurial standpoint of, okay, this person actually knows what they're talking about. And you can kind of, allow some people to not run into some roadblocks that you didn't come into yet and you didn't communicate to them, but they paid you. Like, play fair, because people that are aspiring entrepreneurs, the vast majority don't have a lot of resources to get started. So that's hard-earned dollars that they're putting forward. So those are two of my biggest annoyances when it comes to misconceptions about entrepreneurship right now. There's a ton more. We could talk about that for the rest of the call if we wanted to, but I'm gonna stop at those two because those are huge.
Yeah, I think you're really hitting on something there. I hadn't even thought about that. Is there's a lot of people out there right now offering coaching, and because it's kind of being it's put out by coaches. I've noticed they're like, do you want to become a coach? They're coaching people on how to become coaches and how to scale their own business so that they can get paid the maximum amount for the least amount of time. And so I feel like and maybe it's just me because of social media, I feel like there's more people than ever who are now considering themselves coaches. And so the few things that, just from the other side of it too, if you are looking for someone to be your mentor, I mean, first of all, we're going to get into this, but there's free resources in your town that can often, of people who are experienced former CEOs of companies, executives who are giving it to you for free. You don't need to go pay $1,000 to be a part of a course right off the bat. Like, also, like, looking at their credentials. A lot of people throw out numbers like, here's how in a year I grew my business from this to this. The numbers might be great, but is that going to be a sustainable business is the question I ask. So yeah, you might have grown your business, but like, how long can you keep that up for? And what are you doing? I need to know more than you just made X amount. For me personally, there's a lot at stake there, like, and there's a lot more factors. So I didn't mean to digress, but that's a great point. So there's things you should be asking, and there's a lot of resources that can help you start lean that we're going to get into. And we're going to segue into that kind of sort of right now. Can you tell us about your role as the program director of Make Startups here in Savannah and at the Creative Coast? And then connected to that, your work with this Idea Accelerator Bootcamp, and just in the community in general, mentoring.
Okay. So Make Startups, just for those who don't know, I know we have some folks on the call that haven't been to a Creative Coast event or doesn't follow the Creative Coast yet. You'll follow by the end of this call, hopefully. But Make Startups is a program that the fearless leader, the executive director of Creative Coast, Jen Bonet, set up our organization to go and link up with 5 other cities in the state of Georgia to build the capacity for entrepreneur support organizations. It's us, Atlanta, Columbus, Macon, and Augusta. We work together, and we've been working together to try to establish, okay, here's what the entrepreneur need really is in our state in particular. So as a part of that co-op, we locally have gone out into the community and offered a program, which is the Idea Accelerator Bootcamp, to say, okay, at whatever phase of entrepreneurship you're in, we're here to support. We kind of take you all the way, well, no kind of about it. We take you all the way back to the beginning of starting up, where it's all the way from the ideation of your business, because what a lot of people, myself included, when I opened my business, I didn't know what that business was. I didn't know what it was going to do. I just thought, hey, try it. If you fail, if you fall on your face, you haven't lost because you're getting a lesson. So in doing that, we take you from the ideation standpoint through customer discovery, projecting doing projections for your financials and all of that good stuff. And by the end of our program, it's a 12-week process. You have a complete business plan. Now, you may hear a lot of people, entrepreneurs, myself included, that say, hey, you don't need a business plan when you first start. Then there's some truth to that. However, I wouldn't advise to not have some form of documentation as to how to move forward, because when things start going awry from what you have planned in your head, you always have something to go back and reference and say, oh, we're right on target, or this is not even remotely close to what I was supposed to be doing. So let me either update or get back to my true north based off of what I established initially in the business. Another piece about being in the programs like this or having a complete business plan is If you plan on asking for anybody's money and you don't have a business plan, they are probably not going to take you seriously at all. Because what they want to know is they're going to give you their money. They want to know what your plan is for them to get their money back, plus whatever the terms are you've established. So that's what we do in the Make Startups program. Again, we're in this mesh network with 5 other cities in the state of Georgia to make sure Georgia itself has a community of thriving entrepreneurs. And the ID Accelerator Bootcamp is our vehicle in Savannah to get that out there. So we're looking at potentially, we just finished the cohort earlier, I think it was July. So we're looking to start another one, but we got to get some folks in there that really want to jump in and go. And we're building and looking to be a report back some of our success stories from our previous class. But that's what the Idea Accelerator Bootcamp is about. We really want to build the entrepreneur and allow them to move with a solid plan and understand the hiccups on the front end, so that way you don't have to learn by life experiences. Oh, let me add this. In the Idea Accelerator Bootcamp, like Kate was saying, you have these conversations with these vetted former CEOs and former business owners. We have a different mentor almost every week, different speakers almost every session that has real experience. And that particular program there's a cost associated with it. However, the information that you're going to get is invaluable. These people have sold multi-million-dollar companies. Jen Bonet, our executive director, she is one of the facilitators, and I facilitate as well. Jen was on the cover of Time magazine. So that'll just let you know she's not lightweight. You're getting good information. She's helped build and sell many businesses. So, that's what that program's about.
Yeah. And to kind of echo that, is like there's programs going on in Savannah all the time too that can come alongside that. The ID Accelerator Bootcamp is rigorous. Like, it is not, I've been through it myself. And some of you are like, well, why doesn't she have a business? There's a few reasons. I did have to back out because it was so intensive. And I had a lot of family stuff going on, like very serious stuff. So I backed out because the time commitment for launching a business is, I mean, it's no easy thing. You've got your classes that you go to each week, and then you've got your homework that you have to do between each session. And
it's a testing ground. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me cut you off.
Yeah, no, that's all. So I was just saying, it's like, it's not for the faint of heart. You really got to be passionate about what you're doing and excited about taking your idea and turning it into something. Sorry, go ahead, Dwayne. What were you going to say?
And like you were saying, it's a testing ground for how serious you actually are. And it is it's almost like a little microcosm of the business world and the entrepreneur world. The thing about it is, in the class, you have these accountability parts and these lessons that you have to carry out to build your business. You're building your business throughout the class. It's not some fictional, hey, here's a case study, let's see if we can do this. No, it's the business that you want to have, that you're going to be actively building. But it's a testing ground for that, for you to really test and say, hey, is this what I really want to be doing or not? Because one thing about entrepreneurship, it's going to test you, and it's going to test you at every single turn. There'll be certain points where it seems like it's on cruise control, but I promise you, you're going to peek your head around the corner and punch you in the face. In addition to that, there are some it's entrepreneurship that it's going to test you. Let me see. I'm trying to figure. I lost my thought there. I'll bring it back. So let's move. And if I can remember what I was going to say, I'll bring it back.
Well, this might be tied into our next topic that we're going to discuss underneath this is customer discovery. That is a part of the ID Accelerator Bootcamp, but if you come to the Creative Coast for mentorship or work with anybody who's going to provide you with the counsel that you need, the right counsel, they're going to push you towards customer discovery. And so can you share what customer discovery is? Because a lot of people hear that when we put it in marketing stuff. Like, we've done this for not just the ID Accelerator Bootcamp, but other mentoring opportunities. And it just goes over people's heads. They don't understand what it is and why it's so valuable. and why it's a large part of what we do at the Idea Accelerator Bootcamp and at the Creative Coast. So can you talk about what it is and what it looks like?
And you're right. That was going to jog my memory. What I was going to say was, one thing about it is, if your commitment is not there, like going through this program, you may not have the commitment in the field as an entrepreneur. And one thing is, the customer is going to hold you accountable. And now you got a lot more at stake than time in a class. You have your reputation as the business, as well as the dollars that you put into the business at stake. So when you don't commit to it and you don't go through this rigorous type of structure, and so that's kind of priming you for what it actually looks like in the field, you could potentially be setting yourself up to run into where your customer is now like, I don't know about this business. And in the world of social media, I don't know about y'all, but I'm always trying to make sure I'm doing right by the customer, because in the world of social media, one post, your business might be taking the next 2 or 3 years trying to rebound. One bad post. So from the customer's discovery point, customer discovery is exactly what it sounds like. Who is going to pay me for this good or this service? It is critical for that in your business, because what happens is, if you don't really know that identity of that, you may roll out your business and it rolls out very much like a fad. But if you want to have something sustainable, you really need to understand what's that demographic that's going to stick with me through thick and thin and keep using my service and keep buying my product. And too often people say, hey, this is cool. They'll get out and they'll run, and it might be flaming hot, just crazy for the next year. And then all of a sudden things stop tapering off. But if you're a year in business, by that time, I'm pretty sure you have run up some significant bills potentially. And in that, now you got to figure out, when this thing tapers off, how do I rebound? And that's when you see a lot of people crash and burn, because now they're just following whatever is potentially hot. So you got to really understand who wants to continually buy your service, buy your product. Another point to that is customer discovery. People think, all right, people think in customer discovery, they can just ask the people that they know. One thing about customer discovery is that it is uncomfortable, because I don't care how much the people around you love you, they are not going to keep buying your product and keep buying your service for the duration of your business, because in more cases than not, you're furnishing a need. And if they're buying these things, at some point the need is fulfilled, or life changes for them and they just don't need your product anymore. If they wanted to support you personally, they might just claim you as a dependent instead of buying your business, if they just want to just keep giving you money. So, they want something in return. So you got to understand that. And what that takes is, you got to get out. You got to go ask people that don't look like you, that might not come from the same background as you, but have a need that you feel like your product really is really going to solve. And in that, they're going to feed you exactly what this business is, exactly what this business needs to be, how you need to approach it. That information you're going to get fed that. Because one thing about people in the general public, if you go asking some random person in the grocery store parking lot a question, if they even carve out the time to talk to you, they're going to tell you the truth, especially when they're parting ways with their money. So talk to the people that's going to part ways with their money, that don't have any skin in the game of loving you because they've known you since you were 5, or whatever the situation may be. You got to talk to the people that you don't know. The big dogs get off the porch. If you want to get something going and you want to be a big business, you have to get out and get off of that porch, sitting and watching people passing by. Instead of watching them passing by and trying to ask them from the porch, you have to go off your porch, outside your gate, and walk your street and say, hey, I had a question. And you throw it at them. Don't keep them forever, because attention spans are short. But that customer discovery portion is about that, because at the core of it, that's going to really help you learn and determine who you're actually serving and if your business is going to stand the test of time.
I liken it to a science fair hypothesis, right? Like when we were kids and we had a hypothesis about our business, like, oh, I've got this idea of what is going to work, right? So if this, then that. And then you go out there and you start talking to people, and maybe like what you thought was your hypothesis wasn't right. You start getting answers. It's like a science fair. You're testing your idea. And that leads me to my next question, which I actually skipped over, but it segues perfectly. So oftentimes when we start mentoring somebody or they're going through the boot camp, the original idea they had for their business becomes something completely different. Can you talk about why that is? And that's, again, customer discovery, but like you think about some of these big businesses, like I can't remember, I wish I had the list in front of me, but a lot of these big tech companies that we see out there now, like Netflix, what's another one? Netflix is the only one that's coming to mind. They started as one thing, like something completely different. Like one of these big tech companies was started as like a pinup website or something like that. And now it might be Netflix is now giving us streaming movies. I don't know which one it is, maybe but like the idea changes. So can you talk about why that is how that happens in the process, basically?
There are countless examples of businesses that started as one thing and ended up pivoting. And a part of it was because of some level of customer discovery, or some of it was points where you will go to market and that everything that you thought, I like that you threw out the science project and the if-then statement. You'll go to market and everything that you thought your consumer or your customer wanted, they show you something totally different, or they gravitate to one of your products that you thought was going to be like third tier in your operation. You thought that was just going to be a complementary product. And before you know it, that's your leading seller. So what happens in the Idea Accelerator Bootcamp, we ask a whole lot of very probing questions about your business. And it's nothing to be disrespectful, but we just really want you to know whether or not this business is going to stand up. So in that, we ask all kind of stuff like, okay, if this demographic doesn't turn out, then what do you do? Or say, what if that product, what if your customer comes to you and says, hey, we like this service, but do you do it? Say, for instance, you bake cakes. If you bake cakes, but you only bake one type of cake, I bet you guys already can imagine, if you say you're a baker, people are immediately going to ask you, okay, how many cakes, what different types of cakes can I get? And maybe they want you to start doing something like cookies. Like maybe cookies was not in your idea at all. And before you know it, the cookies actually ends up being the things that sells completely better. Or maybe you come up with a flavoring, or you're sitting there and experimenting in the kitchen and you come up with a flavor and everybody is asking, what's that flavor that you have produced that's in there? And your business could potentially go from being a baker to now you manufacture and produce this flavor for people to use in their homes. Totally different operation at that point. Those two things may seem very related, but the process is to get that product to market and on the shelf, totally different. So it's a lot of pivots, and a lot of it is based off of that customer need and that customer desire. Like the people that's going to keep paying you, they'll cause for some pivots that makes those ideas change. And that's what we do in Idea Accelerator. Like your peers, it is a peer-driven operation. Like you get the opportunity to talk to your peers, and they run through and they ask all kind of questions because they're intrigued too, because they're trying to develop their businesses as well. And some of the questions that may come up are questions that they actually want to, they genuinely want to know, but once they ask it, they didn't even think about it for their business. Another thing that has a tendency to make people change their minds is as questions get asked in the business process, some people land on, I don't even know if I actually want to do that. I like doing that, but I don't know if I want people to be demanding me to do that. And if you bring a product, say for instance, you like to sew, but right now it's kind of a hobby and you can make some money here and there. Once people find out that you're good at it, they're going to tell their friends. And when they tell their friends, you think you want to do it at the business, and then you absolutely hate someone from that day forward, because now everybody's demanding your time to sow. So it's a lot of variables that make people pivot, make them change their mind what the business ideas are. But those are a few that are very consistent across the board. People just like, I don't know, I hate this now.
Yeah, it's interesting how many times you think you know what you want to do, and then you get into it and you're just like, this is not what people are demanding, or this is not where the money's going to be at, or gosh, I really hate this now. I can't imagine me doing this for the rest of my life. And to go back to what I was saying, I started pulling up the companies because I knew there was a list somewhere that I'd seen of companies that started as one thing and then they ended up being something completely different because of demand, or sometimes even the market just changed and there was no need. So they pivoted to something else. So Amazon started as an online retailer for physical books.
Right.
Colgate actually did not start, their brand wasn't toothpaste. It was like starches and soaps. Nothing to do with toothpaste. Let's see. Obviously Netflix, I had it wrong. Obviously they started by sending DVDs in the mail, rentable DVDs in the mail. But one of these companies started as like a pinup site, which is weird. And it's something so different now. You're like, what? I know YouTube actually started as a dating site, which is interesting.
I didn't know.
Starbucks only sold coffee beans and coffee making equipment. So it's more closely tied. But anyways, I just thought I'd read some of those off because a lot of times, you go into it with a different idea and you realize like, wow, I could actually do a lot better and scale my business with team members if I'm doing this, as opposed to doing this thing I've been planning to do or thinking would make me, a scalable company all along.
Right.
So, all right, so let's talk about I want to go back to the Idea Accelerator Bootcamp because I want people to understand there is a cost associated with that. And we're going to also talk about other free resources in the Savannah community, but we're talking about the Idea Accelerator Bootcamp because we realized too that a lot of people don't even know that there are people in the Savannah community that are offering this and coming together. Mentors from all over the community are coming together to help people test their idea, formulate their business. Why do I want to do this? And what's the mission behind my business? And moving forward with legal advice, all of that stuff. So that's why we're talking about it. But so the Idea Accelerator Bootcamp starts with a free session on your why. So why are you starting this business, and ends with a pitch deck. Can you talk about the importance of crafting and being able to articulate your why in startup land?
I touched on it earlier. Your why at the core of things is really going to drive what you're doing this for. And when things get crazy and get tough, why should you even keep going? Because that's one thing about entrepreneurship. There are a lot of up days, there are a lot of down days. But if your why is not solid enough, you're going to abandon ship. You'll more than likely take a lot of losses, and potentially this could turn into a rough lifestyle in general overall for you. Like the quality of life in general could really plummet if you're not rooted in the core of your why, because you can be fueled, like, as long as you're fueled to keep going, because the why is bigger than I want to make money. I want to make money is a very short-lived reasoning for a business, and it'll cause you to have to jump and bounce this way and bounce this way, because that way you're moving with the tide. I mean, depending on how consumers are, you immediately have to pivot, and that can be either both extremely expensive and very mentally taxing. Not to mention the time and effort on your physical body that you have to put on to kind of build and stand these businesses up. So knowing why you're doing it is extremely important. I read a book, and I'm still reading a book. I kind of dissect this book on a regular basis, and it's all about starting with your why. And it's called it's by Simon Sinek, and it is called Starting with Why. And it really rocked me to the core, and I haven't even finished reading the whole thing, because you'll get a chapter in, you'll be like, and it puts on a different lens for you as to really understanding what you're doing and why you're doing it, and what's the real driving force. Why am I really spending this much time, this much effort in this thing? And I personally not only use it for business, I use it for life in general, because it's very easy to get wrapped up in things that are momentary, especially the way we get information and things pumped into us right now, like things that are momentary. And so when you end up spending too much time on social media, you ask yourself, okay, I'm guilty. I'm on Facebook a little bit more than I should be, but it is what it is. You have to ask yourself, okay, why? Every now and then I ask myself, why am I sitting here scrolling? I could be doing something else. So taking that why, just always understanding why you're doing what you're doing kind of helps keep you, it's kind of a compass on life, where it keeps you grounded, it keeps you coming back to center and saying, okay, this is what I'm doing this for. So when things get crazy, I'm good. When things are great, it just feels that much better.
Yeah. And before we got on this call, we started talking about the recent article of the Patagonia founder who gave away his company. And his bigger why. So, everyone knows what Patagonia is, I think. It's a clothing company. I don't have the why right in front of me, but I do know that the founder, I think his last name is Yvon Chouinard. It sounds very French. I can butcher anything. 4 years of French in high school, I can't speak a lick. So he's an eccentric rock climber, and he became a reluctant billionaire with his unconventional spin on capitalism, has given away his company as the headline. So his ultimate goal is to fight climate change. And he's willing to do that at really any cost to him. Obviously, basically he gave away funds to a 501c4, as well as there is the Patagonia Purpose, I think it's called the Purpose Trust, which is their foundation that they're setting up that's going to be run by his family. But they gave away their, shares of the company to a 501c4, which they don't even get a kickback on taxes for that. They don't get a benefit on that. But he's so passionate about fighting climate change, and this nonprofit is going to work to do that. So even when he passes away, that's still going to live on. That's his goal. And so he's also like very much against excessive wealth, which is kind of interesting because you don't see that among a lot of billionaires.
Right. Like,
so, anyway,
that's a way bigger why. And I don't know if my why has grown to the point where I'm going to say I'm a reluctant billionaire.
Right. That's hard to imagine, right? But he's like,
right.
He's an interesting guy, right? I was telling Dwayne, when he was a rock climber, before he started Patagonia, he was living out of his car, which he drives a Subaru today. And he was eating damaged cans of cat food to sustain himself. Just doesn't live mainstream, doesn't even have a cell phone or a computer. It's a really interesting story. I encourage you to go read it. But he's got a strong why, clearly. And he didn't even care about building this company. He never wanted to own this huge company. It just happened because so many people wanted what he was selling and wanted it. Interesting.
Right.
And he had the bigger mission behind it, right? It was always like they've always been funneling money into fighting climate change, Patagonia, and giving money to startups trying to solve that mission too. So anyways, just thought I'd throw that in there. Okay, so you and I have talked about the importance of accountability, and you've mentioned that a few times in our conversation, and accountability and entrepreneurship, and how it's vital for startup founders. Mentorship is what you really talked about. But can you elaborate on this, and also plans in the future for helping startups to keep moving? So maybe they've gone through an Idea Accelerator bootcamp or some kind of bootcamp, and they just feel like they stalled. So let's talk about those things: accountability, mentorship, and how we're going to help moving forward potentially.
So your accountability, the accountability circle, that is probably one of the most valuable assets you'll have. In my personal opinion, I'm a big relationships person because I feel like relationships can get you things that money can't, and relationships can get you in rooms that money can't. All this, any other resource I don't think there's a more valuable resource than relationships. So that being said, you got to establish a circle that's going to hear you and understand what it is that you want to do, and make sure that your actions are aligning with that. Like, I'm a huge proponent of not filling your circle with yes people. Like I can't, if you were my friend and all you tell me is yes, or yeah, Dwayne, you're absolutely right, you're not really my friend. Like, tell me where I'm falling short. Tell me where I need to pick up. Tell me, my man, you got it all wrong. I'm okay with that. I might not feel, it might not be fun in that moment, but I'm gonna take it. And in entrepreneurship and business in general, you need those counterparts that's going to say, hey, you said XYZ will be done by this date. And I got a friend on the phone now, and my wife's on the call too. She is definitely an accountability partner. She'd be like, hey, did you do XYZ? Like, no. And she just look at me like, mm-hmm. So you got to have those people to kind of help keeping you on task, because a lot of times that those individuals really help you become successful. Because this can be a grueling process. It can be tiring. Again, I have a blast doing it. It's a lot of fun, but there are some tough days, just as in life. Like there are tough days where you just don't really feel like it, but you know that you've said this is going to happen, and you got people around you that's going to remind you. And if they nag you enough about it, trust me, you'll get it done because you want them to shut up. But and it'll be the same thing for customers. Like, if you can get that in your inner circle, when it comes to customers, it should be second nature. Like the customers are gonna always hold you accountable because customers are paying you. I hold everybody accountable that I spend my money with. That's just so. With that, so what we're doing with the Creative Coast is we'll be offering here pretty soon. We're still structuring it where aspiring entrepreneurs and or current entrepreneurs have the opportunity to have an accountability circle that are other entrepreneurs and or experienced entrepreneurs that they can call in and say, okay, here's my business, here's where I am, here are the things that I would like to do, here's where I would like to be. We are going to have sessions. I think right now we're in the talks of maybe once, maybe twice a month to allow for time for you to develop what it is that you get from the feedback. But we're going to check in and we're going to say, okay, you're falling behind. Hey, okay, you're missing the mark. Okay, you say you want to amass this amount of revenue by this date. Based off of that, these actions need to be here. So the Creative Coast in the very near future, if you guys sign up for the website, go to the website, sign up for all the social media platforms, all of that information will be coming soon enough once we finish fleshing out exactly how we're going to structure it and when we're going to offer it. But I encourage any budding entrepreneur to find an accountability circle. Oh, and to that point, some accountability circles are great for no pay, but in this situation, it would be a small fee. And here's the purpose of the small fee. It's not to try to make a money off of aspiring entrepreneurs. The purpose really is so that you can have some skin in the game, because you're not going to go to any established business person as an entrepreneur and not have some level of skin in the game, whether that be a history of what it is that you do, monetary obligations, because if you go into the bank, they want to make sure you have something that can protect the money that they're going to lend you, or at least a plan to say how you're going to get this money back to protect the things they're going to lend you. So that's what we'll be doing in the very near future. Hopefully some of you will sign up so we can sit down and kind of help you build your business. Well, not kind of help your business, help you keep working through the different steps to get to where you want to be as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. And it's really, there's tough spots. Like Dwayne said, you hit a rough patch and it's easy to just throw in the towel. So knowing that you can, it's like going to the gym, right? Like, if you have somebody you're meeting there, you're more likely to show up, because you don't want to not show up at 5:30 in the morning. Not that you're meeting at 5:30 in the morning, but you know what I mean? Like if you're telling them you're going to be there at 5:30 or 6 p.m. or whenever, after you don't show up, well, that's not good. They're your accountability partner, and mentors, having people that have been through it, like your personal trainer or whoever is guiding you or coaching you. These are folks that have been there before, and they can say, oh, I hit that spot before, and here's some ways you can handle it. And we're talking people that have years and years of experience in entrepreneurship.
You
And
stepped on my toes with the gym Kate, because I've been wanting to get in the gym, and I know for a fact I'm one of those people. If I'm going to go to the gym, I got to have a workout partner. I'm going to go in there and do much or nothing, or I'm not going to go.
yeah,
So I get it.
sorry about that. Me too. Me too. You're not alone. I'm sure there's a lot of
It's
people.
all right. It's all right.
Planet Fitness is still getting my money, and I haven't been in a while. So that's their their business plan.
Right.
Okay, so we talked about a lot of the Idea Accelerator bootcamps, but there's a lot of opportunities going on. Like we have lunchtime topics right now, and we featured business experts who've even talked on like, okay, you're not charging your customers enough for your service. Like, how do you handle that? We had a whole lunchtime topic on that with Jamie Blair, who is a copywriter herself, and she realized she wasn't charging enough, and she was doing all this work and running like crazy for multiple clients when all she needed was like 2 clients, and she needed to charge more because she had years and years of copywriting experience. Right. And so we offer these free resources ourselves, but they're all over the community. Can you talk and share about some that you know about that are going on and happening right now?
So I want to definitely champion the Creative Coast, because I learned a lot through the Creative Coast, even prior to being a part of the team, prior to Jen coming on board. I learned a ton. So they have, the Creative Coast itself has happy hours where you can meet other entrepreneurs, tech entrepreneurs, women businesses. The Creative Coast has events like She Hustles that's specifically geared towards women, the Grit Conference, the coding boot camps for kids. So, a lot of those things are free. Then you have people like our partners at SCORE. SCORE has a wealth of information. The SBDC, which is Savannah Business Development Center, and then SBA, Small Business Association.
Yeah,
small business. What's that?
It's easy to get those two mixed up sometimes.
I always do it. I do it all the time. But there are more than enough opportunities for entrepreneurs to get the initial information to get them going. And then as you start progressing, there'll be some paid things, but again, it's like that's a part of the business. You have to have some skin in the game. But those are just a handful of them. Use your Googles, research. If you type in entrepreneurship in Savannah, there are all types of things that'll pop up, like programs and everything. But I really encourage using the Creative Coast as a platform to really advise and inform information about the different opportunities, because we collaborate with a lot of people in the community.
Yeah, we really do. All those people that you mentioned, we collaborate with, and we're actually collaborating with SCORE on the upcoming Biz Pitch competition, which is taking place in November. I think it's November 16th, but applications are open if you're wanting to launch a business and get feedback on it as well. So if, the Idea Accelerator Bootcamp takes place like once a year, right? So it's not going to take place till 2023, but the Biz Pitch competition is happening, and it's not 12 weeks long. But they do offer mentorship through that on how to craft your pitch deck and develop your why and that kind of stuff similarly. And you also get to compete for a small cash prize at the end. So that's really exciting. The application's closed for that on I think it's October 3rd. And you can go to SCORE, I think it's Savannah, I should know this. If you go to our website, we have it posted on there, the recent press release. If you go to thecreativecoast.org and you go to the featured news section or the news section, you'll see it there. But obviously, if you go to Savannah SCORE, I think it's savannahscore.org, their website, you'll see it there. And, there's the new ACE Women's Business Center. I don't know if you heard, Dwayne, they just hired the new director there. So they're got more programming coming. And they're recently launched in Savannah. So if you're a woman in business and you're looking for some counsel, there's a place to head up. They offer programming. And we all collaborate together. And we do that because we're stronger together than we are apart. And like Dwayne said, there is a fee that we keep it low cost or free compared to everything else out there, because we want there to be a low barrier to entry. And as you develop your idea, you got to put some skin in the game, because we're developing extensive curriculum around this stuff too. So, and we're bringing a lot of people together to make the events happen. So we got to make sure that people are going to show up and be there and be invested in what we're doing, because people are volunteering their time and their knowledge. Some of them could be charging a lot of money for it, but they're doing it through the Creative Coast so that we can really get more information to people in
And
a,
to that,
much lower
to,
cost.
to that show up point, that that's a major part of getting going. Period. Just show up. Like if you just show up, things can start happening for you. Like, but you gotta take a step. You gotta take a step. You gotta show up. And then, she mentioned in the ID Accelerator Bootcamp that we only offer it once a year. We would love to offer it more frequently, but we got to have a demand. So if people want to really learn and feel like some of the information that they've got here today, and the information that you'll get once you sign up and follow the pages and like the pages and all of that good stuff and check out the website, you'll see it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it.
It really is. It really is. And it shows you what's important, right, in your business. And you find out too, if entrepreneurship isn't for you, that's why there's that free session. So you can kind of really get a sense for it and go, do I want to invest in the full 12-week boot camp? Do I have the time to do it? Is my family, if I have a family, is my family more of a priority? That was the case for me at the time. Had a lot of illness in my family. So I had to say, I can't do this right now. I'm not in a place to start a business. And so it really puts things in perspective for what to expect and how much of your time it's going to take at that free session. So okay, so Dwayne, say people want to connect with you, where can they go to connect with you online?
Easiest way to catch me is you can always email me. I'm very responsive. It's Dwayne, DWAYNE at thecreativecoast.org. You can follow me on LinkedIn, or if you want to, I would even, my phone number is on the bottom of my signature line. So you don't have to try to, if you want my phone number, you don't have to jot it down. But at the bottom of my signature line and my emails, if you email me, you'll have my phone number as well. And I'm pretty responsive. Like my phone's always on.
We have one question in the chat, and someone's asking, do you have to be in Savannah to have access to the help of your programs at the Creative Coast? So to answer that, it depends on which program, and it depends on where you're at. Like we help this Southeastern Georgia region all the way down, like if we've had people tune in from Brunswick. We even had somebody participate from Atlanta last year, right?
Right.
This past year.
Right.
So we do allow people in to participate. The idea is that we are focusing on Savannah folks for all of our programming, but we don't exclude other people. Like you can tune into our Lunchtime Topics; those are free. The Idea Accelerator Bootcamp, that's kind of a case-by-case basis. Like if you're not on the same time zone and you're not willing to tune in, then it's not going to work, right? Like,
right.
But we've let other folks in. So,
but if you are somewhere else, and you want to tune in, get in the Idea Accelerator Bootcamp, we don't tell you no. You may be able to do something. What if you could potentially even want to do some business in Savannah? We tell you what our market looks like, and you start feeling that this is a community that, hey, this community has a wealth of people. And if I just saw it in the chat that someone said they're in Atlanta, maybe, not saying move, but maybe you may cater your business towards a smaller market so you can kind of get a tip you can kind of get a smaller start in efforts to scale up. So we're open to everybody for, like Kate said, specific certain programs. Some programs just only work for our market based off how we have it structured. But going forward, who knows? We have several different things, and we're more than willing to help because that's what we're here for.